Tom here from Metalloud, and welcome to the review of Green Day's Revolution Radio.
I was a high school atom bomb, going off on the weekends, smoking dope.
Green Day are probably one of the most infuriatingly frustrating bands for me because I loved them as a kid. With Dookie was probably one of my first edgy punk albums that I really listened to. It wasn't really a punk album, but at that time, I was about 5 or 6 years old when I first heard it. I didn't know what punk really meant, but it was my first intro into kind of edgier territory and things, and kind of shaped a bit who I am and music that I listen to. And honestly, despite all the hate that it really gets, I still love that album. I still think they did a great job with it. They were unique, especially during that time period. They brought something to the table that no other band was really doing at that point, and combining a lot of different styles together. And then they followed that up with a streak of fairly decent albums. Then we enter the modern era of Green Day, as I like to call it, with American Idiot. And that's an album that I really, really liked when it first came out, but I feel like it was because of where I was in my life at that point. And I was about 14 or 15 years old when that came out, and that style really kind of appealed to me. And however, it really faded quickly. I grew out of that album really, really fast, kind of seeing it for what it really was. And that brings us to this new album, Revolution Radio, which is just an example of why this band frustrates me. I mean, I know they can make good music. I know they have the talent. I know they can make great songs. There's tracks on here that are absolutely great songs and fantastics. Like the opening track, for instance, called Somewhere Now, is a kind of acoustic-y, slower, moody track that I really get a great vibe from. I really like that song. It's different from things that they've done. It's not like really what you've heard from them, and it's a nice change of pace, and I like that song. It kicks things off, and then you get into the song Bang Bang, which is I believe the first single that they released off this album, and you're just back into that wannabe edgy song and wannabe political, but they never go full force with it, and it just comes off feeling pretentious. It really just feels like it's trying to be something it's really not, and that they don't understand what they're actually talking about. Now, musically, the song isn't terrible. It's got this pretty pulsing bass line. It's nice, this really cool guitar riff. It just falls off with the lyrical content on here, and it describes basically, I guess, sarcastically praising a mass shooter. It's just weird, and I do not like that the lyrical content of it just comes off again feeling disingenuous overall. And then you get the title track, Revolution Radio, which is pretty much by the numbers for Green Day. It sounds like every other Green Day song that you've heard, especially since 2005. But again, lyrically talking about rebelling and being outsiders, just it comes off feeling forced. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like it's it just, God, I again, this is why the band frustrates me, because the track itself, again, is by the numbers, but it's not bad. It just, they fall apart with those lyrics because you don't really feel them. It really just feels like you feel like they should kind of change up a little bit. It doesn't feel like it's coming from a genuine place. And I'm sure the lyrics themselves are going to speak to some people, especially if you're at that age where you're kind of going through a lot of shit and you're being told, you have to act this way or do this, and you kind of want to rebel against everything. This is going to be music for you, but at the same time, it doesn't really last outside that bubble, and that's why I just think it really kind of falls apart overall. And then there are songs on here that I actually did enjoy a little bit, like Youngblood, which, despite being really repetitive and suffering from, again, pretty terrible lyrics overall, it's still really, really catchy and just fun to listen to. It almost feels like a bit of a throwback for them, and I really kind of like that. And the same story goes for the song Too Dumb to Die, which is, again, just catchy, but lyrically just kind of feels a bit soft, and it's just a song that I did enjoy, but I don't know how long I would enjoy that for. It's not going to make me go back to the album itself. Then you have the song Troubled Times, which is a more serious song in tone, and despite being a bit simplistic, it really is a song that works well on this album, and actually a track that does kind of stand out a little bit on here. So if you've been a fan of Green Day, particularly since their American Idiot days, or if that's where you see them as being at their peak, this album's definitely going to satisfy you. It's not a huge rock opera like that album, but it's just feels a lot similar in style to that album. It's by the numbers Green Day mostly. It's safe. It's music that wants to be really kind of something it's not. And while, in terms of overall quality, it never does anything offensively bad where I would say that this is a terrible album and, you shouldn't listen to it under any circumstances and Green Day sucks, whatever. There are a lot of decent tracks on here and definitely some fun moments on even tracks that I didn't like. There's still something I may have liked about those tracks. It's just that it's boring, it's simplistic, it's just predictable and repetitive, and it doesn't stand up well. When you have especially other bands doing other things very well, and it feels like the potential is there, and that's why I say they're frustrating to me, because it feels like the potential is there for Green Day to make a fantastic album again, a one-of-a-kind album again, and really kind of capture what they brought to the table with Dookie. Not the sound, not the style, but just what it actually represented in terms of music at that time. But they never capitalize on that. Those moments are there. It feels like they could, but they never go all the way with it. And that's just why it frustrates me. So Revolution Radio is a standard Green Day album. It's decent overall, but it's really no revolution.